Let's get straight to the point. This is you. It's your first day working at customs. You're wearing the freshly ironed uniform. Your shoes still creak as you walk. The border building smells of cheap coffee and old papers. You take a deep breath. You tell yourself that today your real life begins. You've always wanted this job, not for the money, but for the romantic idea of protecting the country. At the academy, they called you the idealist, the guy who raised his hand to answer every question, the one who recited entire laws from memory. Today, you are finally here. Your supervisor watches you from the door. His name is Ramirez. He has the tired look of someone who has seen too much. He pats you on the shoulder. He says rule number 1 is simple. You laugh. You think he's joking. Ramirez doesn't smile. Then he hands you your first post, a small inspection booth. From there, you will control the endless line of trucks crossing the border. You sit in front of the monitor. The X-rays show containers filled with boring things. Appliances, clothing, mechanical parts. Everything seems routine, even a little disappointing. You expected something more exciting. Your first truck arrives 10 minutes later. A chubby driver with a mustache. He transports watermelons. Lots of watermelons. He hands you the documents. Everything looks correct. But you remember something they taught you. On the first day, you must inspect everything. To learn. So you raise your hand authoritatively. Stop. Red light. Inspection. The driver sighs. You know they hate it when rookies do this. You open the container. Thousands of watermelons. You cut one at random. Just fruit. The driver laughs. Says the same thing always happens with newcomers. You feel a little silly, but proud. You followed protocol. Ramirez watches from afar. He nods slightly. The second truck brings furniture, nothing strange. The third brings machinery parts, all clean. Hours pass. You start to relax. Maybe the job isn't as dramatic as you imagined. Then the fourth truck arrives. It's old. Very old. The paint on the trailer is chipped. It's transporting something strange. Plaster statues, hundreds of them, angels, saints, religious figures. The driver avoids looking you in the eyes. He hands you the papers with trembling hands. He says they're for a souvenir shop. Maybe it's the weight of the truck. Maybe it's the silence of the driver. Maybe it's that gut feeling in your stomach. You decide to inspect. Red light. The driver protests. Says the plaster is fragile. You might break everything. That only increases your curiosity. You climb into the trailer. You take a statue, an angel with outstretched wings. It weighs too much more than it should. You gently tap the base. It sounds hollow, but it also sounds metallic. You frown. You go for a tool. You break a small part of the pedestal, and then you see it. Inside, there are packages wrapped in plastic. White powder. A lot of white powder. You freeze. You just found your first shipment of cocaine. Your heart beats so hard you can almost hear it. You look at the driver. He's pale, as if he knows it's all over. You call over the radio, request reinforcements. Within minutes, the yard fills with officers. Ramirez arrives running. Looks inside the broken statue, whistles impressed, says you just seized almost a ton. Everyone congratulates you. You feel like a hero. Your first day. And you already caught drug traffickers. The driver is arrested. Cameras snap photos. A local reporter appears mysteriously quickly. They ask you questions. How did you discover it? What did you feel? You answer clumsily. That night you return home happy. You tell your wife everything. She hugs you proudly. Says she knew you were special. You fall asleep thinking you did the right thing. But at 3 a.m, your phone rings. Unknown number. You answer half asleep. A calm voice speaks on the other end, says your full name, also your address. Then mentions something very specific. The color of your son's bicycle. You sit up in bed immediately. The voice continues. Says today you made a small mistake. The statues weren't supposed to be opened. You try to respond, but the call cuts off. You stare at the phone. Maybe it's a prank. You try to go back to sleep. The next morning you return to work. Something feels different. People look at you too much. Some smile. Others don't. Ramirez calls you to his office, closes the door, congratulates you again for the seizure, then asks you a strange question, says whether you really opened the statue on intuition, or if someone told you to do it. You shake your head slowly. He says sometimes intuition can be dangerous. You don't understand what he means. Before you leave, he adds something else. Says be careful with what you find, because not everyone wants you to find things. The phrase lingers in the air. You return to your booth. You try to ignore the discomfort. Then another truck arrives, carrying tropical fruits, avocados. The driver hands you documents. Everything seems normal, but something catches your attention. On the form there is a signature. It's the same company that sent the statues. That's strange. Red light. The driver protests immediately, says the shipment is urgent. The avocados spoil fast. You insist. You climb into the container, cut one at random, just avocado, cut another, also normal. You feel ridiculous. Maybe you're paranoid. You jump off the truck. You're about to let it go. Then Ramirez appears at your side. He puts his hand on your shoulder. Says that's enough inspection for today. To let the truck pass. You're surprised by the order. You tell him you're not finished yet. Ramirez squeezes your shoulder harder. The truck starts, drives away slowly. As it disappears down the road, something inside you feels wrong. Very wrong. That afternoon you review the record system. You want to know more about the statue company, but the file is gone. It doesn't exist. As if it had never crossed the border. That's impossible. The cameras recorded it. The seizure was public. You search the recordings. They too have disappeared. The hours when you opened the statue are erased. You stare at the screen. Your first big victory no longer exists in any record. At that moment you understand. You didn't catch a criminal group. You interrupted a business. A huge business. And worst of all, that business operates from inside customs. You slowly look up. You watch your co-workers walk down the hall. They talk, they laugh, they drink coffee. They seem like normal people. But now a horrible idea settles in your mind. Maybe you're not surrounded by colleagues. Maybe you're surrounded by Mafia partners. And you, on your first day of work. Let's get to the point. Now you know something you should never have discovered. The Mafia isn't trying to cross the border. The Mafia is the border. You keep staring at the blank screen. The records are gone. The recordings erased. The seizure that made you a hero no longer exists. You breathe slowly. You try to convince yourself there is a logical explanation. Maybe the system failed. Maybe someone misfiled the records. But deep down you know the truth. That wasn't a mistake. It was a cleanup. You close the system with trembling hands. When you look up, you see something worse. Ramirez is standing in front of your booth, watching you. He doesn't look angry, nor surprised, just patient, like a teacher waiting for the student to understand the lesson, or, like us, waiting for you to finally subscribe to the channel and support us with a like. He signals with his head. Follow me. You walk silently down the hall. You arrive at a small break room. There's an old coffee machine, 2 chairs. Ramirez closes the door, pours himself coffee, offers you one too. You decline. He sighs, says all rookies go through the same. Confusion, indignation, heroism. Then he calmly explains something, says the border moves billions a year, much more than the government admits. Drugs, weapons, electronics, money, everything flows like an invisible river. Then he looks straight into your eyes and says something that freezes you. That river needs gates. We are those gates. You don't understand. Ramirez continues. Says the system isn't black and white. That customs decides what gets through. And what doesn't. Some shipments stop, others pass. It's balance. You laugh incredulously. That's not balance, that's corruption. Ramirez doesn't argue. He just says the real world isn't the academy. Then he adds something worse. Says yesterday you broke a very expensive agreement. The statues weren't supposed to be opened. He asks if you remember the night call. You nod slowly. Ramirez smiles. Says the cartel was surprisingly patient with you. Any other rookie would have disappeared. But you're useful. You made a large seizure. The media saw you. Now you have a reputation. A new hero. A perfect symbol. To stop rival shipments. They want to use you, an honest cop, as a weapon against other criminals. Ramirez finishes his coffee, offers you 2 options. The first is simple. You join. Nothing changes too much. You just learn when to look, and when not to. He says you'll earn more money than you imagined. The second option is also simple. Internal investigation. Administrative errors. A ruined career. Maybe worse. Heavy silence. You think of your family, your son, the red bike they mentioned on the call. You breathe deeply. You say something unexpected. Ramirez smiles, satisfied, but not for the reason you think. Because at that moment, your plan has already started. In the following days, you act exactly as expected. You learn quickly what companies belong to the cartel, which shipments must pass, which must fall. Your reputation grows. The local TV calls you again, the young hero of the border. The irony is delicious. Every seizure you make makes the cartel you protect stronger, but no one knows. Not even Ramirez, because you're also learning something else. How the entire network works, who signs documents, which cameras turn off, where the money is kept. For weeks you memorize everything. Names, dates, routes. Until finally the moment arrives. A Thursday night. Quiet shift. The truck line is short. Ramirez is in his office, drinking whiskey. You enter with a folder. You say there's a problem. Ramirez grunts. Says to see it tomorrow. You insist. Say it could be huge. Finally, he agrees. You walk together to the yard. The container is alone. No driver. No visible company. Ramirez frowns. Says it's not in the system. Exactly. You ask him to open it with you. They break the seal. Climb into the trailer. Inside there's no merchandise. Only black boxes. Ramirez opens one and freezes. It's not drugs. It's hard drives. Dozens of them. Also printed documents. Thousands of pages. Bank transfers. Photos. Call logs. Videos. The entire operation. The whole corrupt system. Ramirez slowly turns to you. The confusion on his face is almost amusing. You ask what's happening. Calm voice. You explain. For weeks you copied every record, every conversation, every payment, even the erased cameras. You recovered them from the backup server. Ramirez begins to sweat. Says you're crazy, that no one will listen to a rookie. Then something is heard. Engines, many engines. Blue lights illuminate the yard. Dozens of vehicles surround the building. Doors opening, running footsteps. Federal agents enter shouting orders. Ramirez looks horrified. Understands too late. The container isn't contraband. You slowly lift your badge, but it's not the customs badge. Below appears another, Federal Internal Affairs Unit. Your first day at customs. It was never really your first day. It was infiltration, an undercover operation. For months they prepared your identity. They knew the network was rotten, but they needed someone from inside to confirm it. And you did. Ramirez tries to run. 2 agents tackle him, handcuff him to the ground. As they take him away, he shouts insults, threats, vows of revenge. But it's too late. The yard fills with arrests, officers, drivers, supervisors. The entire network collapses in one night, hours later. The sun begins to rise. You sit on the edge of the loading dock. An agent approaches, hands you a coffee, says you did a great job. You ask something simple, if it was worth it. The agent thinks for a few seconds, then points to the building behind you. Dozens of corrupt people in handcuffs walk out one by one. Says sometimes the system works. It just needs someone to shake it up. You breathe in the cold morning air. Your phone vibrates. It's a message. A photo of your son, riding his red bicycle. You smile. For the first time in weeks. You don't have to pretend to be a hero, because this time, you really are. The border reopens that same day. The trucks start crossing again. But now you know something important. The Mafia thought it controlled customs. What they never imagined is that their worst enemy had started working there from the very first minute.